Good afternoon and welcome to an afternoon live stream. These are very rare. Ed Wallace and I are available during the middle of the day. Due to the fact that I'm now retired, we're available to go live during the middle of the day. So welcome, everybody. Today's topic and discussion is going to be Nancy Guthrie. Did Sheriff Nanos lie on his resume? And the recall push, which has already begun. It started yesterday. And in fact, it started way before yesterday. But it looks like the wheels of justice are starting to get pushed into motion as the Pima County Supervisors meeting yesterday really shows that this is happening. But what we want to highlight as well is who pays the price for this? The residents of Pima County, and in particular, Nancy Guthrie. Her case is active and ongoing. We don't know what happened to her. We don't know where she is. We have no new information. There's no communication from Sheriff Nanos and his public information officer. Ed, your thoughts on what unfolded yesterday?
Well, it seems like there's going to be some accountability heading to the sheriff's direction. Apparently, there are things in his resume and things in his past career that are now coming to light that should have come to light with this same board when they recommended and hired him on an interim basis to be the sheriff there before he was elected. And I know now there are fingers pointing in different directions. You know, the board is saying, "Oh, it's not our fault. It's this organization's fault. They didn't do a thorough background check on this individual." I don't care whose fault it is, but now the good people of this area are suffering because of it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, Ed. And we now have 53 days of no answers. It's day 53 today. And I want to play a little bit of this. This is going to tug at your heartstrings because you're going to hear Savannah, Nancy Guthrie's daughter, talk with her fellow co-host, I think, Hoda, on today. There's going to be a full interview with Savannah Guthrie on Thursday, tomorrow, and Friday. But let's take a listen to this because this is who pays the price for Sheriff Nanos' lies.
But we're going to start with something that is very personal. It has now been 53 days since Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home in the middle of the night. And Hoda, yesterday, you got the chance to spend some time with that girl. You sat down with Savannah, her first interview since her mother's disappearance.
Yeah, Craig, Al, and Carson, as you can imagine, it was a really emotional conversation. We're going to have the whole thing for you tomorrow and Friday. But first, we did want to bring you one of the moments from the interview where Savannah shared a message to anybody who may have information about Nancy.
Someone needs to do the right thing. We are in agony. We are in agony. It is unbearable. And to think of what she went through. I wake up every night, in the middle of the night, every night. And in the darkness, I imagine her terror. And it is unthinkable, but those thoughts demand to be thought. And I will not hide my face. That she needs to come home now.
Yes. Oh, man.
I mean,
how are you?
I'm okay. I mean, there is a desperation and also a steeliness about Savannah. I mean, she's hoping that somebody, whoever this person is, will see something and say something. And as you'll see in the coming days, she talks about so many things. She talks about the investigation. She talks about her faith. And she talks about how she's getting through. That was one portion there. And in the next portion, you'll see how she talks about how God's holding her hand. So and she also will describe what's been happening here. But I was sort of marveling that she was able to sit there
Yep.
with an outfit on, have a conversation, and also have just direct thoughts about what she sees going forward. So
Gut wrenching to watch somebody you love so much be still post 50 days of this tragic event in this tortured limbo state.
That's exactly where it is.
Yet to still show so much resilience and grace among it all.
Yeah.
But
and she will, I mean, she explains too, and you'll hear tomorrow, it's like no one's
So I wanted to play that because this is who suffers here. The family is looking at what's unfolding. They see that there's a no confidence vote with the sheriffs, the folks who work for him, all the deputies. We had Sergeant Cross on a few nights ago. He let us know in no uncertain terms that Sheriff Nanos is a bully. He has a big ego. He's spiteful. He's all of the above. And he made a statement at a press conference about people hold him to his words, and that he sometimes doesn't get things right. How ironic is that? I mean, the guy lied to become a correction officer, and that's what he did. He slithered in through the corrections department. And as we know, and I'm not knocking correction officers because they got a tough job to do, but a lot of times cops who get either the boot or don't make it first time that they apply for a police job, they go to the sheriff's department and they try to apply at the corrections division. And he got in. He got in by lying. And that's a big no-no, whether it happened 40 years ago or 2 months ago. It's never acceptable for a law enforcement professional who swears to take an oath, lies about his past. And 8 suspensions in 5 or 6 years in El Paso, Texas. And for some of those suspensions, at one point they were going to fire him or resign. They gave him the option. He resigned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he didn't do his full career there, didn't get a pension there. He was given the option, resign or be fired. Now, if you're fired from law enforcement, you're done in law enforcement. You're never going to get another job in law enforcement. Now, he reapplies to the sheriff's office here. Now, typically the sheriff's office, they cover jails, and they cover as well as courts, in addition to unincorporated cities that don't have their own police officers, or incorporated cities that don't have their own police departments will contract the sheriff's office to provide law enforcement services for those jurisdictions. So he got his foot in the door with corrections and made his way through there, and then moved into the law enforcement side of the house. And it's just basically a lateral transfer. But Arizona, like many other states, has a post. It's called AZ Post, right? Police Officers Standards and Training, right? And they have to certify police officers. So I don't know who was responsible for the background check of the hire here, and who, but it's apparent that AZ Post gave him a law enforcement certification. And I don't know if a background check is a part of that, or medical, psychological exams are a part of this as well. I don't know how they do their due diligence in Arizona, but I know how we do it. And, this would have been found out.
Yeah, 100%. And somebody dropped the ball, and it happened a long time ago, and then it just got forgotten. So once he slipped through the cracks, nobody did their due diligence. It's unfortunate that it took a reporter from an Arizona newspaper to uncover this story, an investigative reporter, and kudos to him or her who did this, because they did some digging and they came up with the receipts, and the receipts don't lie. And when Sheriff Nanos was questioned about it, he said, a lot of times, we forget about some of the things that we did in our past, or whatever the case. Like he made a ridiculous statement about it. He's going to be called to come and testify before the Board of Supervisors. And yesterday there was an unanimous vote to have lawyers draw up documents on April 7th of 2026, coming in this next month, to start the process of having Sheriff Nanos produce or them to produce the records and have him answer to them. But also they made some statements, Ed, that the board has the authority to remove the sheriff from his position if there is findings that confirm that he did in fact lie. Let's listen to some of the board, the conversation, courtesy of our friend Brian Enton, and also we hear from Dr. Hines. Brian interviewed him today or yesterday, right after this meeting, and he had a lot to say. But here's a couple of residents, some ladies and some men from the community. We'll listen to them quick. It's only a couple of minutes, and then we'll get to your questions in the chat. So let's take a peek.
Sheriff Nanos is currently in the process of being recalled. As a person helping to collect signatures, the mere mention of his name gets the clipboard snatched out of my hands, followed by, "Give me that, this guy has got to go." Most petition signers only know of Sheriff Nanos from the embarrassing reports on national news, excoriating him nightly for a pattern of amateurish missteps in the gruesome disappearance of Pima County resident Nancy Guthrie.
Thanks, Joe.
This does not bode well for the leading law enforcement officer in Pima County or the people who gave him that job. The sheriff's well-documented history with the El Paso Police Department should have never granted him employment in the Pima County correctional system, much less the climb to sheriff. The signs were there if anyone bothered to look. For example, there is a record of disciplinary action, including a multiple-day suspension for police brutality.
I'm Sergeant Aaron Cross, president of the Pima County Deputies Organization. As many know,
There's our buddy Sergeant Aaron Cross. He's going to have a lot to say, and some of the things that he mentions here, he talked with us live about on Sunday night. So shout out to Aaron Cross and Mama Cross. We're going to be sending some merch to Sergeant Aaron Cross's mother, and I can't wait for her to get it. We're going to send it courtesy of Crime Time with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace.
a reporter recently uncovered the long-hidden, terrible record of Sheriff Chris Nanos from his time as an El Paso police officer. This includes purportedly beating a handcuffed suspect in the head with a flashlight, for which he was suspended and nearly indicted. This record, if properly disclosed, would have likely prevented him from being hired or from becoming a peace officer in the state of Arizona. For over 40 years, this has been concealed from the department and the voters of Pima County. Because of this scandal, our organization, the largest union of deputies in Pima County, has taken a vote. We asked our members a clear question: confidence in Sheriff Nanos to continue in office, or no confidence, and a call for his resignation. The verdict was unanimous: no confidence. He has lost the faith of his deputies and the community.
It's no secret the nation has eyes on Pima County. We have a sheriff who has numerous lawsuits, an FBI RICO investigation, deputy on deputy rape case, a pattern placing campaign opponents on leave. He has created a hostile work environment where in many cases officers or deputies question or disagree his actions or decisions. Retaliatory actions such as duty reassignment in most egregious circumstances, demotion are sure to follow.
Chris Nanos is an international embarrassment at this point. Now, I know that you guys didn't hire him. We elected him, unfortunately, but
So she's talking really close to the mic, so she's a little overmodulated, but she called Sheriff Nanos an international embarrassment. Like, out of all of the civilians that came up there, this lady's was, and it's longer than this, it was powerful. She really let people watching, and she's speaking before the board, right? So there's 5 people up at a podium at this, watching her. She's looking at them. But boy, she really runs down all of Sheriff Nanos' horrific history. 5 years or more spent, a little bit over 5 years in El Paso, Texas, and he was suspended 8 times. Ed, think about that. I mean, look, we go through decades of law enforcement. I have friends who have spent 35 years on the job and weren't suspended once. And in New York City, I'm talking about, very busy place, much busier than El Paso, Texas. Hundreds of thousands of calls come in on a regular basis to 911, and the amount of calls for service that we respond to we could go through decades, some of us, and not have one suspension. I went through 20 years and I was never suspended. I know you weren't either, Ed.
No.
So to have a sheriff running Pima County who was in his cop career suspended 8 times. So, and one of the times he was suspended, it was for 10 days. So the spectrum of what he did while in El Paso, it was, it ranged from pulling firearms on people unlawfully to using excessive force. He bludgeoned somebody with his weapon. This is all in those reports. I'm not making this up. This is for everyone to look at. So if this was put to light 40 years ago, what would you hire this guy for? I wouldn't even hire him to clean the toilets. So it is really eye-opening, and it was something that I felt necessary to speak on today.
Long before the Nancy Guthrie investigation, this man lied about his record to get hired at the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Recently, he lied under oath. And we know that he runs the sheriff's department with an iron fist, abusing his employees. We have one in the room today. Sergeant Aaron Cross has been absolutely abused by this man. Lieutenant Heather Lappin, who had the audacity to run against him for sheriff, was abused to the point that even though she was wildly well-educated and well-informed and so qualified for her job, that she fled to another police department where, frankly, they pay her better and treat her so much better. Women have been abused under this man. This county has been abused under this man.
So you can hear some of their concerns there at this meeting. Sheriff Nanos, when we started covering the Nancy Guthrie.
Right, so this is Brian's interview with Dr. Hines. Matt Hines, this was after this supervisors meeting. I'll play a little bit of the supervisors meeting at the end, but what he says here is compelling. You got to hear what this interview is only about 8 minutes long.
Sure. Story, February 1st. So we don't know all the history, and there's clearly a lot of history with the sheriff.
There is some history for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you have concerns specifically about the Guthrie investigation? Does that play into all of this, or is it mainly other issues?
Honestly, it is a lot of issues. It's an accumulation of issues. The Guthrie investigation, because of its high profile nature, certainly, reframed things and made people all over the world and certainly all over the nation just kind of tune in and more aware of the sheriff.
Hey guys, I was in Arizona for almost a month and a half. There are one factor.
I mean, I don't
qualify. You're eating.
I mean, I don't have it on me, but one of the quotes that came out of our sheriff on, I believe, February 3rd was in response to a lot of press interest, of course, with this high profile case. I'm not used to having people hang on my every word and holding me accountable for the things that I say, which is not reassuring. And very much, I think, representative of so much of his career in Southern Arizona in law enforcement, especially in light of the information we just received about how he came over here from El Paso 42 years ago and withheld his very troubling work history. He would not have been able, frankly, and one of the questions I hope, we'll see what the lawyers recommend, but certainly a question I would like to ask him is, okay, so somebody with 5 years work history in El Paso with 8 suspensions, 37 days total of suspensions, who came to your department today, what would you hire them for, if at all? I would love to know that answer, because the answer is he's not eligible with that kind of a record for any employment in the county, not right now. And I suspect that.
I mean, Ed, could he have not broken that down any better right there?
Yeah. And, so many suspensions in a short period of time. You said 5 years, 8 suspensions.
Yeah. And a total of 37 days suspended from service in the El Paso Police Department. And I would question El Paso Police Department also as well, is if you have somebody like that, why did it take 37 days of suspension, 8 different times to say, hey, dude, we're firing you. Either you resign or, I mean, they were being nice to him. I mean, when you look at the allegations, which they break down here, I think Dr. Hines goes through some of these allegations. It's not little stuff. I mean, we just got to listen to this.
Had those been who were involved with the hiring process back in 1984, I think it was, known about that very troubling work history, he would never have been hired, and he certainly would never have been certified through the AZ Post. That's the peace officer group for state of Arizona. Every person in law enforcement has to be have AZ Post certification. Like I have to have, I have to be a licensed medical practitioner to see patients as a physician, and so on and so forth. So that's just what law enforcement have to do in the state of Arizona. Same thing with every other state. He wouldn't be able to qualify for that, based on what we've learned, especially based on the fact that we just found out that he committed perjury, it appears, in a recent deposition. I can't remember the exact date, but it was in December of 2025. That's not 42 years ago. That is 3 months ago. And it's just unacceptable. It's tarnishing, and it really, you have to have honor and integrity, and you need to be held accountable for the things you do when you're in elective office, but especially when you are not only elected, but also the highest ranking law enforcement official in Pima County for the largest law enforcement agency in Southern Arizona. You have to be held to a much higher standard. So what I continue to be surprised by, I wasn't surprised nearly as much by the revelation that came from that Arizona Republic article about his work history as I was by the fact that it's been almost 2 weeks and we still haven't seen his letter of resignation, because that's the right thing to do.
So you mentioned that he was under oath, and was he asked about, have you had any previous suspensions? Is that what the question was?
Yes, that's
infamous truth teller, please do, and thank you for the super chat. Send me that, preferably over Instagram. You could go to my Instagram. It's Duty Ron, straight out, or on X, Duty Ron. Either one of those 2 platforms is, I'd be able to get it directly to my phone, and then I could transfer it over here to the computer. But look, here's the Pima County supervisor saying to Brian in an interview, I'm surprised that he hasn't resigned by now, because look, the writing's on the wall. He is not going to be sheriff very long, and he may be able to fight this thing, but this board has the authority to remove him. They have to have that cause, and they have to go through that process. But once the process starts, and it's already started yesterday, April 5th, he talked about the lawyer's suggestions and so forth. After that, of course, these processes, they don't happen really quickly, but what I listened to, it sounds like they do have the authority to vacate that position for cause. So I hope they do it. I mean, this guy skated. He slid in under the wire, Ed, and was able to remain because no big cases came up, and he wasn't on the grand scale. But these people were onto him, and it started not just because of Nancy Guthrie. It started before that.
Well, here's the thing too. Now that this investigation has started, if they find that in fact he committed perjury, both in his application for the job and in his testimony, he'll lose his post certification. And once you lose your post certification, you can no longer be law enforcement.
Right.
So they have to remove him as the sheriff at that point.
Yeah, and I hope that happens. Schmitty's in the building. Good to see you. His head is too big to fit through the door to go out. Yeah, I mean, that's look at all the big ego. I have that in big letters here. Big ego, spiteful, a micromanager. If you buck this guy, you get transferred. Look at the torture that Sergeant Aaron Cross has endured. The guy is a 26-year veteran with a very smart man. Ed, you spoke with him privately. We spoke with him here on the live stream. That's a waste of good resources that the people of Pima County are paying a sergeant's salary to answer a phone. It's insane. Ed, you're muted. I don't know why. Oh, okay.
I'm muted because all of a sudden somebody's mowing the lawn.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that. Let's listen to the rest of this.
Right.
And he said no.
Correct. County for the largest law enforcement agency in Southern Arizona. You have to be held to a much higher standard. So what I continue to be surprised by, I wasn't surprised nearly as much by the revelation that came from that Arizona Republic article about his work history as I was by the fact that it's been almost 2 weeks and we still haven't seen his letter of resignation, because that's the right thing to do.
So you mentioned that he was under oath, and was he asked about, have you had any previous suspensions? Is that what the question was?
Yes, that's right.
And he said no?
Correct. I will, if it's a little weird to do this on camera, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm pretty sure that's what I read.
Yes, that is. So here's the deposition. Okay, there's a deposition report, page 13. All right, so here we go. So going back, they were talking about a lot of his work history coming from El Paso, all that stuff. And then there we go. Okay, prior experience. Okay. Have you ever received discipline as a law enforcement officer? Yes. What was the nature or extent of the discipline that you received? Primarily, it would have been like, I'm not a very good driver. Okay. So I have a lot of car accidents and, a letter for this or a documented verbal for that. Did you ever receive a that rose to the level of suspension? No. That's
So he lied under oath. This was in 2025, December.
That's it. I've in my career, I've seen people do this on court stands, on voir dire to be exact. I had an expert come in and claim to be a ballistics expert when he wasn't. And I knew that for a fact because in another case, a high profile case, he was denied expert status by that judge. And when I found out he was on the witness list, I gave that information to the assistant district attorney about this particular quote unquote expert. And so they, out of the presence of the jury, they wanted to voir dire his, for his expertise. The defense team was using him as their expert. And so when the prosecutor got up, he had all the ammunition all ready to go. And he said to him, have you ever been denied expert status in ballistics in New York State?
Yeah.
He said no. Then he asked the judge for a sidebar, and he went up to the judge and with the defense counsel and broke out the case where he was denied in Manhattan, same jurisdiction. Okay. And the judge had him taken off the stand by the court officer and arrested.
So he got arrested. Good for him. I mean, you do something, lying under oath is a crime, right? They can arrest you. The judge can arrest you. People are asking in the chat, could the sheriff be arrested for lying under oath?
It is perjury. If the prosecutor in that state, in that county wants to pursue that, yes.
Wouldn't that be poetic justice here? This guy is an arrogant SOB. And at the end of the day, somebody in the chat just brought it up. With all this going on, Sheriff Nanos, this is created by him, not by anybody else. Nancy Guthrie and her family, Savannah, her sister Annie, her brother, and the remainder of the community are now wondering, like, this homicidal maniac or maniacs who did this to Nancy are on the loose. Who's next? And the seniors of the Catalina foothills are really, really scared. And that's a fact. There's no getting around it. But now with the seniors seeing this, this could additionally compound that fear, because they're like, we have an incompetent sheriff who lies. And we didn't just see the Pima County deputy's president go up there, Sergeant Cross. We saw civilians. We saw people in the community. So it's troubling. And who pays the price? As we started in the beginning, we showed Savannah Guthrie pleading and crying on her show, interviewed on her morning show, and the full interview will be released tomorrow and Friday. I'll upload that here for you guys outside the country. That's who pays the price. The citizens of Pima County and this victim and her family. It's horrible.
Going back, they were talking about a lot of his work history, coming from El Paso, all that stuff. And then there we go. Ever received discipline as a law enforcement officer? Yes. What was the nature or extent of the discipline that you received? Primarily, it would have been like, I'm not a very good driver. Okay. So I have a lot of car accidents and, a letter for this or a documented verbal for that. Did you ever receive a discipline that rose to the level of suspension? No. That's from a deposition.
He was suspended several times, right?
8 times. He was suspended 8 times, and some of them we don't even know what it was for. The meeting went very long. Executive session was 3.5 hours, so I truncated my public comments considerably, but I hit on kind of some of the highlights. But here we are. I had it ready to. I was going to read the entire disciplinary history, which is a little bit excessive, but because it's like 2+ pages. Yes. So some of it's like abusive language, tardy, shot fired. That was suspension 1 day. I wonder what that was about. Brutality.
I read it. Sergeant Cross shared it with me. Now it's coming back to me, Ed. He fired his weapon at somebody off duty and just went home. And the person knew who he was. So he got suspended for shooting his gun at somebody and then just going home, holstering his weapon, going home, and just like chilling out.
Really? You would have been fired immediately, and you would have probably been arrested in New York for that.
Locked up. You get that's reckless endangerment, folks. Right? If you just randomly fire your gun at somebody or fire it up in the air, as it's stated in the report, I'm actually going to pull up because I saved it on my phone.
Oh, fired it in the air.
Yeah, or fired it at him in his the report was from the civilian is that he fired it in the direction. So let's see. She said she sent a link to your Instagram. The second one is the one you're able to open. I accidentally sent the first one and didn't make it. Okay. All right. Let me go look at it. Let's let the rest of this play. He goes a little bit more into detail here.
That's the pages. Yes. So some of it's like abusive language.
Ron, when you go off, you shut the...
more shots fired. Oh, that was okay. Failure to report for duty, 1 day, LWOP, leave without pay, right? Off-duty conduct, threats, reprimand. Yeah, so it goes on. But violation of rules and regulations, suspension, 10 days. Doesn't say exactly what that violation was.
So a 10-day suspension.
Yeah, if you get suspended for 10 days, that was the biggest... wow, that is loud. That was the biggest hit that he took, 10 days, Ed. I would imagine that's for that shots fired incident.
Well, I'm kind of mystified here because some of these things seem quite egregious, and to not get a suspension for more than 10 days for those things, but we don't know what he got suspended for 10 days for, but it seems like some of the things that he did get suspended for, that they were kind of light sentences.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's listen to the rest of this. I think it only goes for another 3 or 4 minutes. So let's play it.
He had a 10-day suspension. He had multiple 1, 2, 3 day suspensions, usually for stuff like, and that whatever that the leave without pay one. I'm sorry, I'm looking down a little bit because I'm reading it.
No, it's fine.
So yeah, civil suit against city. What? Okay. Yeah. So suspensions. So it's 37 days total of suspension time, and it was 8 occasions. This is over 5 years, and I've heard from so many people in law enforcement. They are, I mean, they're they're apoplectic about this. You cannot retain this high office. You can't get the respect of the 1,500 hardworking men and women of law enforcement, both on the correctional officer side of things that are helping to deal with the jail, and also on of course the deputies side of things as well. You can't be the head law enforcement officer when you yourself, at this point, he let his certification, that the peace officer certification, he let that lapse because you don't have to have it in the state of Arizona when you're an elected sheriff or a constable, which is weird because we give them guns and an automobile, 2 deadly weapons potentially. So it was 8 suspensions in a little over 5 years. And it is kind of unusual to have any suspension for most of our officers. So to have 8.
Sorry, Ed, I have to mute you because that blower is really loud. But this is troubling, and look at this comment. And you know, I love it when the live streams are less of a crowd. You know, we don't have a lot of people watching. But here, Joan just said this, and this is what leads to people to speculate to this. This is not like we look at this, and I asked Sergeant Cross about it live on Sunday night. I actually asked him this question. You know, and he kind of like shrugged it off and laughed it off as a law enforcement professional. But people that are just watching this and that have no law background or experience, this is not like outrageous to even think this. I'm not saying that he is the porch guy. And I'm not saying that he's involved. I highly doubt that the sheriff's involved in it. But because of this bad hit track record he's got, it's making people think these things, right, Ed?
Yep. Am I unmuted? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, people are out there saying these things, but you know, it's because of his own actions and what he's doing. But again, I haven't, you know, we have no evidence of any of that. But we do have evidence now of other potentially illegal activities, in perjury being at the top of that list right here.
Yeah. And look, the list that was sent to me, and shout out to I don't want to dox this person. I just want to make sure I have the right name here. Hold on, let me just click this off. Hold on. Shout out to our friend. I'm not going to say it's her full name. I'm not going to say it there, but shout out to her for sending it to me. In 2022 to 2024, there was these sexual allegations as well that had to do with, I believe, jail personnel. That he also, the sheriff is in charge of all of the members of service, and he basically failed to, I believe, investigate that properly. But this is sent to me in a Google Drive, and my God, it's page after page of craziness. But let's listen to Dr. Hines for a little bit more clarity on Sheriff Nanos, and hopefully in a few short weeks or months, we have this guy removed and somebody a little bit more competent in there, because they'll have to appoint that. This very board will appoint, just like they appointed Sheriff Nanos in 2015, going into 2016. The board appointed Sheriff Nanos to complete the term of retired Sheriff Clarence Dupnick. And they have to be kicking themselves in the arse for that, because this very board appointed temporarily Nanos in 2015, going into 2016. And then in 2016, in the election, he lost to Sheriff Mark Napier. And Nanos didn't let that go. He was like, oh, F this, I'm coming back in 2020. And the people of Pima County, for whatever reason, they didn't have this knowledge, voted him in. And it's horrible.
In 5 years, this is a really troubling record. He was frankly a bad cop. I don't know what that 10-day one was for, as I mentioned, but I'm scrolling down more. Yeah, lots of dereliction of duty, tardiness, unnecessary force, and discourtesy, whatever that. Okay, where is it? Excessive force, that one wasn't sustained. Habitual tardiness, excessive force, again, 15 days. And I went back and looked at it.
One of them, Ed, he went AWOL. He just didn't show up, I think, for 5 days to work.
Yeah, a lot of these appear to be like what we have back here from CCRB. Okay.
Yeah, like discourtesy, I heard him say.
Yeah.
That could be him cursing somebody out or telling somebody they're, whatever, this, that, and the other. But this, again, is something that's so concerning when you have a major investigation like this going on and you have a buffoon like this guy telling the FBI, look, I'm going to send, he gets into the supervisor here, Hines, gets into the conversation of the cost factor that it costs the citizens of Pima County and the county itself to send the DNA stuff out to that lab is astronomical. And he even says right here in this interview, why the hell didn't he allow the FBI to take that evidence? Because they wouldn't have charged us anything. It would have been free and they would have done a great job. Ed, you could talk about Quantico and how well of a job they do there.
Oh yeah, they have a great DNA lab. They have a great crime lab in overall. Okay, and they're ISO accredited, and which is like the highest accreditation you can get for forensic labs and so forth. And they're lab centric, right? They like to do all the work themselves. They don't like their field people doing any forensic processing per se, and just tell them, hey, package it up, ship it back to us in Quantico, no matter where you are in the country or the world for that matter, because the FBI has done crime scenes in foreign countries, like the bombings of our embassies and so forth.
Right. Infamous Truth Teller was the one who sent. Thank you, Infamous, for the additional super chat. She sent that Google Doc, and Ed, I'll share it with you after we're done here.
Yeah. See, I don't understand. If you make a Brady list as a cop, how do you remain as a cop?
In Arizona. Something's fishy.
Or anywhere, right?
She's pointing out that we have many Brady list cops in Arizona. Look, we can go to Illinois and we could talk about Sonia Massey, who was murdered by a cop who floated from all over the place. This guy was kicked off of multiple departments and brought into his position there, and he wound up murdering her, shooting her right in the face. He told her, if you don't drop the pot, I'm going to shoot you in the face. And he said the F word, and the guy wound up shooting her. And he was one of these scumbags that bounced from department to department across the country. He was all over the place. I think 4 or 5 different states, and wound up over there. How the hell does some people like that get hired? They got to do better, man.
But violation of rules and regulations, suspension 10 days. Doesn't say exactly what that violation was.
So it's 10-day suspension.
He had a 10-day suspension. He had multiple 1, 2, 3-day suspensions, usually for stuff like, and that whatever that the leave without pay one. I'm sorry, I'm looking down a little bit because I'm reading it.
No, it's fine.
So yeah, civil suit against city. What? Okay. Yeah. So suspensions. So it's 37 days total of suspension time, and it was 8 occasions. This is over 5 years, and I've heard from so many people in law enforcement. They're apoplectic about this. You cannot retain this high office. You can't get the respect of the 1,500 hardworking men and women of law enforcement, both on the correctional officer side of things that are helping to deal with the jail, and also on of course the deputies side of things as well. You can't be the head law enforcement officer when you yourself, at this point, he let his certification, that the peace officer certification, he let that lapse because you don't have to have it in the state of Arizona when you're an elected sheriff or a constable, which is weird because we give them guns and an automobile, 2 deadly weapons potentially. So it was 8 suspensions in a little over 5 years.
I just want to do a pool of the chat, Ed. How many people here are outraged about this? I mean, if you live in Arizona, Infamous Truth Teller is saying that she could send a link on the investigations that they did in Arizona, Brady List cops. But if you're outside of Arizona and you're watching from outside the country or within the United States, how many of you are outraged? I mean, put a 1 in the chat if you're outraged that people. This is an elected official. He was able to run on a ballot, he was elected. How many people are outraged that this gets to slip through in society? It makes you think, like, how deep does this run? And how many elected officials outside of Pima County are shouldn't be there because of their past history? I mean, do your due diligence. When I became a police officer, Ed alluded to this. They went to all my neighbors. I'm here 30 years. I just celebrated my 35th wedding anniversary on Monday. But when I was a cop, going to be a cop in New York City in 1991, they went to every one of my neighbors' house and knocked on their doors. And you know what they asked them? What's Duty Ron's character like? What's Ron Liccardi like? Is he a good person? And then they checked my tax records. They checked my credit history. They checked. I basically got a colonoscopy from the New York City Police Department. Ed, did you go through that as well?
Yes, in 1983 or 82, I did it. Yeah, 82. And yeah, and so it was. They came to my neighbors, and you know what? And some of my neighbors are my relatives, so they knocked on doors of some of my relatives. But they went to my my high school employment and my college employment.
Everything.
Yeah, they went and did the financial background, and then you take a psychological exam and you have to pass that, and then you take a physical exam and you have to pass that, then you do a medical exam and you have to pass that.
Look, I'm not proud to say this, but there was a period of time when I was in my early 20s, when I was going to college, that I was depending on my mom and my grandmother for financial support. I had to write I had to have a note written, and I had to have it I had to have it notarized and send in to the investigator why my mom and my grandmother were supporting me for a 2-year period. That's how in depth they went.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to hire somebody who has a massive amount of credit card debt or that can't afford to sustain themselves, because that's a corruption liability, right? Because you get on the job and you got a gun and a badge, now you can start extorting people or doing bad things. So a huge department like a huge department like the New York City Police Department, who has 40,000 at the time in 1991, we were on that 40,000 verge, and right now to this day they have 35,000 members. That's the due diligence that's done on a cop, not someone who's trying to become the sheriff. So this sheriff should have gotten a colonoscopy times 10, and he didn't, and people failed, and it's just horrible.
Years. And it is kind of unusual to have any suspension for most of our officers. So to have 8 in 5 years, this is a really troubling record. He was frankly a bad cop. I don't know what that 10-day one was for, as I mentioned, but I'm scrolling down more. Yeah, lots of dereliction of duty, tardiness, unnecessary force, and discourtesy, whatever that. Okay, where is it? Excessive force, that one wasn't sustained. Habitual tardiness, excessive force, again, 15 days. And I went back and looked at it. In fact, I had someone send me the actual articles from El Paso's paper that he used his flashlight to bludgeon a handcuffed suspect. So, right? I mean, he's subdued.
There's assault right there.
Well, again, if something like that were to occur in New York City, that officer would be arrested and fired.
Thank you.
He's handcuffed, right? And he beat the guy so severely that about the head and neck that he went into the ICU, and it precipitated a civil lawsuit against the police department. He was initially suspended indefinitely.
That's assault in the second degree. And depending on those injuries, it could be first degree assault. He was in ICU. That's the intensive care unit, folks. So Sheriff Nanos beat somebody that was handcuffed, that was restrained with his flashlight, to the point where he had to be put in ICU. And I would almost think that, this person has long-lasting, lifelong injuries from that assault, and this guy is the Pima County Sheriff. Get the fudge out of here. That gets a oh hell no. Hold your ears, everybody.
Oh hell no.
That warrants a oh hell no.
And then once things got sort of adjudicated, he was allowed to come back. That was in March of 82. Of force that went back and looked at it. In fact, he used his flashlight to bludgeon a handcuffed suspect. So, right? I mean, he's subdued, he's handcuffed, right? And he beat the guy so severely that about the head and neck that he went into the ICU, and it precipitated a civil lawsuit against the police department. He was initially suspended indefinitely. And then once things got sort of adjudicated, he was allowed to come back. That was in March of 82. I was like 5. And then habitual tardiness. And then what's the next one? Oh, and then eventually the next page for July of 82, insubordination and consistent inefficiency, which is like kind of one of my new favorite phrases. None of that came through. Yesterday, my public records request, which I put in about a week before, did come back with 177 pages, including his entire partially redacted personnel file, as well as the initial application that he put in for a correctional officer and for deputy. And in each of those instances, it asked specifically why and what was the nature of your separation from the El Paso Police Department. Of course, that's pretty typical. And his responses on neither of them reflected what actually we now know to be the case.
So he lied on the report that he just said that he pulled. He did a request as a supervisor, of the Pima County. He's got the right to go and pull the personnel records. That Sheriff Nanos, when he filled out his application to become a corrections officer for Pima County, he did not disclose any of this stuff. And you are required to. You are required to.
He said personal reasons and to get a better paying job on the first one. I believe the second one was personal/divorce, and then to improve myself or to better myself or something to that effect. Nothing about, well, I had to leave because they were about to fire me. That wasn't in there. And I don't know if there was an oversight role lapse on our part as a county, because background checks were part of any application to become a correctional officer or a deputy at that time. I don't know why.
Well, maybe there was some type of corruption going on back then that somebody was told, hey, don't, just overlook this. I don't know. I don't know if that's in fact true, but he did slip through the cracks. And I don't know if they were desperate to hire back 40 years ago, or if everything was much more lax. There was no internet, there was no YouTube lives, there was no people reporting on stuff, there was no social media. So back 40 years ago, things were a little different, right? So maybe he knew somebody, and this I'm sure will come out in the future. A lot of people, a lot of people, Ed, are in the chat and they feel like this guy is a crook with a badge. And it's sad to hear that, but he definitely has lied about his past, and that makes him not eligible and not, you raise your right hand and you swear to uphold the law of the land as a law enforcer, but he is the head honcho of Pima County. He runs the whole county, and that is scary in itself.
It didn't happen. Background checks are required to get AZ post certification, that peace officer certification I mentioned. So somewhere in that process, clearly he was not being fully open and honest or transparent about his history, and that is an unget-overable problem. We must hold law enforcement to an even higher standard, elected officials as well, and he's both of those things. And as I mentioned before, I'm Richard Nixon knew what to do, right? Like, I mean, he didn't put the country through an impeachment.
I am not a crook.
He cannot, I believe, he's disqualified himself from retaining this position. So we'll see. I hope he does the right thing. I hope he doesn't make us follow through with calling him before the board and having him testify under oath about these things, because he really should just hang it up.
So you're a Democrat, right?
I am. And he's a Democrat
And
too.
he's a Democrat.
Look,
That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, so this isn't, oftentimes with these kinds of things, it's like Republicans versus Democrats or vice versa. But
I love that Brian brought up this political part, because this guy's a Democrat, Nanos is a Democrat. So I like that he did that as a reporter and brought this up, and listen to what he has to say here.
Look, I love this country. I took an oath to the Constitution and for the United States and also for the state of Arizona. And I take that very seriously. And so did Chris Nanos. And that's why, look, man, you conspired with and used resources of your office to deprive your general election opponent, a Republican who I actually supported, of her First Amendment rights. He threatened her with her job. He intimidated her and silenced her. He decided that there was a gag order. You have to go home, stay there from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday for the last 3 weeks of the 2024 campaign. Heather Lappin lost by 481 votes. That was a photo finish.
He put her under house arrest, according to this county supervisor. This is Dr. Hines. He's saying that Sheriff Nanos put his opponent under house arrest and told her she couldn't leave the house.
500 through Friday for the last. There was a gag order. You have to go home, stay there from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday for the last 3 weeks of the 2024 campaign. Heather Lappin lost by 481 votes.
Oh, God.
That was a photo finish. 500,000 people voted in that election, and he put his thumb on the scale, and he did so using the seal right behind me. He used the trust and authority that was placed in him by the people of Pima County. He used that and abused that trust and authority and resources of this county to I believe, to create, to corrupt a fair election. And I don't say that lightly. Because I personally heard, I will say I did come out and endorse his opponent, Heather Lappin, in that particular election. And when I did that, I got multiple Republican friends and independents who said, oh gosh, I already sent in my ballot. And, we don't like the current sheriff. We don't like Nanos, but we saw some stuff that came out in the news that she was doing all this stuff that the sheriff said she was doing. So we didn't feel comfortable bubbling in Heather Lappin either. Okay, you don't need that. And I heard from maybe half a dozen people or so about that. When you lose by 481 votes, that requires a recount. I mean, it's pretty easy to see that the voters did not have the truth, right? They didn't know about his withheld work history. They didn't know that he has been perpetrating a fraud upon the residents of Pima County for 42 years. That the first thing he did when he set foot in this county and was looking for work in Pima County was to mislead, misrepresent, and frankly, to just lie about his work history. And that is significant.
Do you think
it's huge? And it brings me back, Ed, to thinking, why was Sheriff Nanos refusing help from the United Cajun Navy and Dave Rader with EquiSearch Midwest? It really does make this it makes it go deeper, because now people are like, he's corrupt, he's hiding something, was he involved? And that's what's causing this pot to stir, is all of these things now, and people that are just hearing about this, because this is not a secret. This has been out. Like Sergeant Cross shared his disciplinary record with me maybe mid-February. So I knew about Nanos's disciplinary record, but it was all brewing because these people of the board, the supervisors, it was all going to happen. And like he said to me, he said, you could talk about it all you want, but the bottom line is they have to make it happen. They have to now take action as a board. And if they do what they said they were going to do yesterday, this will happen. He will be removed. And some people here are like, I'm outraged. He should be arrested. So it's there's a lot to unpack here. and there's a lot of legalities that, you heard them say April 7th, they're going to have the lawyers come in. Now we're going to get a bunch of lawyers coming in and talking about this. So will this get drawn out another month or two or more? I don't know. What do you think, Ed? Your thoughts? We'll go to the chat after this.
Yes, I believe it will be.
I mean, you mentioned he should do the right thing in your words. Do you think that he would actually resign? Just because, based on, I don't know him well at all. I never knew who he was before Nancy Guthrie, but just my experiences with him, he doesn't strike me as having that kind of a personality.
He's a very proud and stubborn man. And you're right. I don't know that he will do this. I just know that, I'm hearing from people every day. I don't have it with me, but I even got kind of a funny postcard about it. It's not funny at all, actually, excuse me. But that's a different way of communicating. Usually I don't get postcards asking me to do things. In this case, get rid of the sheriff. But email every day, according to my staff, phone calls, voicemails coming in saying, what the heck is going on and why isn't the board doing something? We have very limited authority. We're not the Congress. George Santos, that famous situation, the Congress actually was able to expel him. And I would love to be able to do that. We can't even censure him. I don't know why. It's very restrictive in terms of what the county supervisors can do. There's a narrow pathway to vacating the office if he doesn't respond. If the board votes on April 7th, which I suspect they will, in follow up to our executive session and public item today, if the board does vote, in fact, to require the sheriff to either come in person and testify after being sworn in, hopefully that results in truthfulness, or he can submit in writing, I guess notarized writing. He can swear in paper format too. If I were his lawyer, I would probably do that one. But if he chooses not to respond to one of our questions about some of the duties of his office, then there is a provision in statute, territorial era statute, that would allow us to vacate the office after 10 days of lack of responsiveness. But it's a very narrow
When you say vacate the office, as the board, could you throw him out as sheriff? Is that what you mean?
In that specific scenario, yes. He would either need to refuse.
He's saying, Ed, to clarify, if Sheriff Nanos does not respond and just does nothing after 10 days, then they have the authority to remove him from office, is essentially what he just said. You're muted.
Yeah, I caught that.
Okay. Yeah. So people in the chat were looking for clarity on that, but yes, that's exactly 100% what he said. So
used to refuse.
Board, could you throw him out as sheriff? Is that what you mean?
In that specific scenario, yes. He would either need to refuse to be sworn to testify or refuse to provide sworn written statement, or if he, for example, if I asked, or if the board asked, can you please tell us about the nature of how did you come to be employed, and can you explain why you appear to have provided false testimony while sworn in a deposition in December? His response to the media here has been, it's a long time ago, and do you want my high school diploma and my high school transcript while you're at it? And he's dismissive. And again, not really answering the questions. And I didn't lie. He was on the radio on Friday, Bill Buckmaster's show, explaining how he didn't misrepresent his history in any way, shape, or form. Really? Okay, guy. So I don't know. But if he probably, I would say this would be not following your legal advice. If he ignores his lawyer and decides to blow us off and not bother either coming in after 10 days, due to that specific law, it's ARS 11-253 if you care, if that would allow us to vacate the seat after 10 days of him not responding to us. Or if he shows up and just says, I refuse to answer, or if he shows up and doesn't answer the question we ask, like he talks about his Corvette instead of responding to why he made, what he did with his work history misrepresentation, that would be like, it might go to a court, but pretty clearly that would not be complying with the statute.
Yeah, and I was listening to you in the meeting. You mentioned a RICO investigation. You mentioned high jail death rates.
for years.
Reaching out to the Attorney General at one point. I wanted to ask you specifically, though, just because, again, a lot of our followers are very invested in the Nancy Guthrie. Sorry, my light.
Sure.
The Nancy Guthrie case, and are frustrated by the lack of progress. I mean, do you think
his response to that was, "We all are"?
Everything that you've said about the sheriff, all of your concerns about the sheriff, are playing into why we have not seen more progress?
I think, look, the entire 4-decade history of his presence here in Southern Arizona has been based on fraud. And so it is clear to me, listening just to the quote that we talked about before, I mean, like, being surprised that people listen to their sheriff and want to hold him accountable. My goodness, it is clear to me that he is not capable or competent to lead in this office. He is more than tarnished, and that's not specific to any investigation. The most recent high-profile one certainly has been shining light on things, but for example, I mentioned the RICO, and I didn't spend as much time in public as I was intending to because the meeting was going so very long. But I mentioned that because there is actually a video of him back in 2015 or 16, just laying into the FBI, just this anti-FBI screed, because he was about to be indicted. The only reason he didn't get indicted was because the guy who knew where all the skeletons were buried, a gentleman by the name of Gagnapane, I know I can't spell that, he tragically committed suicide. And then the FBI or the U.S. attorney or whoever the prosecutors were decided to just drop it, though I suspect they had enough to indict him. So that's something that the voters did not like, because he had been appointed sheriff in 2015 and then lost his election in 2016. So when the voters are informed, they make, I think, the right decision, right? Which is very different than what happened in 2024, for sure.
And just my last thing from for outsiders looking in who don't know you, who don't know the politics of Tucson.
Sure.
And you're very passionate about this. It sounds like, this issue with the sheriff. I mean, have you had a beef with the sheriff for a long time? Is it personal in some way?
I'm highly allergic to incompetence and certainly to abuse of power, like we saw, I believe, in the election interference. And also, it's a Democrat.
So, Ed, I want to wrap up here. I want to go to the chat and get everybody's thoughts, because everybody is expressing their thoughts. But before we do that, I want to say first, thank you to the super chatters. Jeff, thank you for the 5. I hope they dethrone this dictator. And Katina, as always, a great moderator, friend, and channel member. Those responsible for hiring him need to be held accountable. Very suspicious. I agree. But unfortunately, Katina, 40 years in the past, a lot of these people are retired, or maybe some of them aren't even here anymore. Infamous Truth Teller, thank you for supporting through super chats and sending me those docs. Chris Schmitty, thank you for being a member for, gosh, over 53 months. His head is too big to fit through the door to get out. I think he's going to have to answer to this. And that's going to be very interesting. It's going to be some good listen. It's going to be something good to listen to. And I hope he has to come before that board, because if that's the case, we're going to have that live here. Melissa, thank you for being a member for a month. Nanos is no good. Cross for sheriff. Cross already told us his wife said he's out in 2 years, so he is not. Thank you for becoming a channel member, Infamous Truth Teller 411. We appreciate you. Schmitty back throwing her pocketbook and purse at us. We owe Nancy a thank you for exposing Nanos. I agree with that too, and I also feel like this put it on the international and national stage. But he was being exposed prior to this. This fight was going on within Pima County elected officials before, unfortunately, the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. Least underscore truthworthy Weasel, thank you for the Canadian. Appreciate it. Thank you for the support. We love our friends in Canada. Debbie, thank you for being a member for 32 months and praying. Tracy, good to see you. What a disgusting disgrace. Get him out. He's a liar, not fit to wear the uniform. He's a disgrace to the badge. And Ed and I call the balls and strikes. And it seems like so does Dr. Hines here, Pima County Supervisor. He is a no-nonsense guy. And, this interview that Brian dropped today with him is telling, because this is coming from elected officials and they're on to his nonsense. And I hope that they do the right thing. But 40 years of Pima County Sheriff being there is despicable. How did it happen? So hashtag Ed, hashtag Duty Ron with some questions. I know Ed's got to run. He seems to have a busy schedule today, so I want Ed to be able to be on his merry way. Questions from the chat as we transition forward. There's just one more news clip that I think is worthy to play here because it's local. You know what I noticed, and you guys let me know who live in Tucson. News 4 kind of treats they treat Sheriff Nanos with kid gloves, and they did a story on it. They're very nice to him. I don't know why, but Tucson News 4, they were forced to do coverage on this. So let's listen to this because I didn't listen to it all.
Turn to the latest today on the Pima County Sheriff controversy. The Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos targeted this morning at the County Board of Supervisors meeting. Nanos accused of misrepresenting his work history on his resume, among other issues, sparking concern from at least one county supervisor. This morning, in the call to the audience,
it was all fired.
The head of the local Sheriff's Deputies Association saying the group took a vote of no confidence in the sheriff. News 4 Tucson's Eric Fink live downtown at that meeting right now. Eric.
Hi there, Robbie. Supervisor Matt Hines put this item on the agenda for today. That discussion regarding Sheriff Nanos is set to happen within the next hour here at the Pima County Board of Supervisors meeting. Hines is concerned about the revelations that came out very recently that Sheriff Nanos misrepresented his work history in a sworn deposition. So let's get to video. Earlier this month, the Arizona Republic uncovered Sheriff Chris Nanos had the wrong dates on his resume as to when he worked as a police officer in El Paso. The resume had Nanos working at the El Paso PD until 1984, when in fact Nanos resigned from that police department back in 1982 instead of being fired. I asked Sheriff Nanos if he was going to be at the meeting today. He told me he wasn't invited. Now, last week, the Pima County Deputies Organization voted no confidence in Sheriff Nanos. You'll hear from the president of that organization, Aaron Cross, and then from Sheriff Nanos, told News 4 Tucson earlier that he believes he has the confidence of this community.
He has lost the faith of his deputies and the community. His past renders him unfit to wear the badge. That he has concealed it for 40 years does not make the concealment right. It makes the fraud greater. The 300 deputies I represent speak with one voice. Chris Nanos must show the integrity he once swore to uphold. He must show the dignity that the office requires. He must resign.
You just know you're going to have people out there who don't like you, and that's okay. I can't win everybody over. But I also have some comfort in knowing that 2 elections now I've won out by receiving 250,000 votes each time. So I have some supporters out there, I believe. I think people that I know that know me, they know what I'm about and they know who I am as a human being.
Yikes. I can't even look at that guy anymore. It really just disgusts me. So Ed, a couple of questions come in. Some people are asking, could he be arrested from this? And I think we covered that, but maybe some of these folks weren't in the chat when we did cover it.
Yeah, if the board goes to the prosecutor in the county and says, referral for perjury, the prosecutor can potentially arrest him and prosecute him for giving testimony on the oath that is fraudulent.
Yeah. And look, in that interview that they just showed of him, it was recent. They just questioned him on it. Tucson News 4. he seemed nervous. I don't know, Ed, if you picked up on that, but he did not seem confident in what he was saying. Like he said, I got 250,000 votes. I have people who are support me. I don't think those 250,000 votes still hold water after what's come to light here. So Cynthia in the chat saying, I hope they do arrest him. Here's Holly G. She says, Duty Run, it seems standard practice to check references on resumes. Is there a different system in place for checking references, education, and government positions? This is 40 years ago. So Holly, we can't say what the procedures are in right now in place were in place 40 years ago. Things change over time. We all know that, right?
Well,
So
but we discussed what we went through, and I was over 40 years ago, and I went through a much more stringent process, obviously, than what happened here.
right, we're in New York City, and the police department is a professional police department. And I'm not saying Pima County Sheriff's Department is not a professional department, but I don't know what it was 40 years ago. I know that NYPD stays true and true throughout its history over 100 years. So the NYPD checks your stuff. That doesn't mean that El Paso communicates with the next place. It's not really up to them to communicate this guy's history. He was supposed to divulge that and be truthful, which he wasn't when he applied. And anybody that applies for a police job, you have to give everything that you did as an adult or as a young adult, like with me. Right from getting out of high school, I had to document what I did, how I made my money, where I lived, who supported me, or if I supported myself, and if I had any criminal background. And they didn't even just take my word for it. They went to my neighbors.
They ran our fingerprints through NCIC. They ran us through the system. They searched nationwide and federally to see if we were ever arrested.
Right. So, here's someone who is from the area and knows a lot about it. She says, because he was a political bully, and when he put her on suspension, he was there. Oh, she's talking about his opponent. So he's Chris Nanos. We had Sergeant Cross tell us that anybody that bucks him, he either bounces him, he puts him, behind a desk and answers phones. So he's a very vindictive guy. So, C. Taylor says that's why NYPD is highly respected. Some people slip through the cracks. Don't get us wrong. It happens. They're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Some bad apples get on. But what I am telling you, and what Ed is conveying to the public here, is that we went through a very strict background check, and we were young. I was in my 20s. I don't know how old you were when you started, Ed, but it was in my early 20s.
I was in college, when I took the test.
There he is, conservative felon Joe. Good to see you. Thank you for joining, and everybody here that's following. He's been on with us. He's got his own YouTube channel. He talks about everything related to the criminal justice system, jails, and so forth. So go check out Joe's channel, Conservative Felon. I think we answered a lot of the questions. We're going to continue to follow through with this. If Sheriff Nanos is in fact taken out of his position, we'll be there to cover it. But Nancy Guthrie missing 53 days. I have it written down here, and this is where it now takes away from the attention to what's most important, is finding out what happened, where she is, where are her remains, bring her home to her family. The investigators, let's keep everybody focused here, Ed. The investigators are not being, this is not applied, they're not being swayed from their investigation, is what I'm trying to say. The FBI and the Pima County sheriffs and the folks who are in that task force, they're not looking at this, and this is not affecting the way the investigation's going forward. It is going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But this is something that's happening in the political realm, and that the county supervisors are taking care of, and along with Sergeant Cross and the union, they're going to work on this. They're not investigating Nancy Guthrie of who abducted or who did wrongdoing to Nancy Guthrie. So let's keep that also in focus. And I love this comment from River Life 81, and it's a very true one. Good cops hate bad cops, because number one, we are, we hunt criminals. We put bad guys in custody. We take bad people to jail. We don't expect it to happen within our ranks. And when somebody does something bad, that's like you hear he's the sheriff, it makes the job more difficult for the good men and women that are out there doing it every day. It makes their job tougher, because what do they hear? You're corrupt. You're this. These Pima County deputies, they're getting an earful. Sergeant Cross said, I get a tongue lashing on the phone every day. And he has nothing to do with this. So it's just the person who represents the department. All right, listen, we want to just say prayer, strength, and positive vibes to the investigators and to everybody on the ground in the area that are conducting these investigations. To the people of Tucson, the residents that are worried, and keep your doors locked, stay safe. And as Ed says, I'll let you finish it up, Ed.
Also to the Guthrie family, stay strong. And prayers for everybody involved. Folks, thank you for spending your time with us here today. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere you like. It's an honor to have you here with us. Thank you for spreading the word about us. Always, folks, going forward and at all times, stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, Ed. Thank you so much, guys. And for the newer subscribers, we thank you and value you. And to the folks who are replaying, the replay viewers, let us know where you're watching, city and state. Let us know if you're new here. We always love to hear from the new folks. And thank you for all of the people who subscribe and watch our videos. Give it a thumbs up, share it onto your social media platform, and we'll see you on the next one. Good night and good day, or good evening. Depending on, some people it's the morning. So thank you for being here.